The environmental justice issue that my group decided to focus on was the Chevron Richmond Refinery. This refinery is located in Richmond, California, which is about 12 miles outside of San Francisco. It is older than the city of Richmond itself. In February of this year, early February, 600 gallons of oil spilled into the San Francisco Bay. This is only one of many incidents that has occurred in this area from this refinery. For example, one issue was an explosion in 2012 that sent 15,000 people to the hospital. Also, 147 formal enforcement actions were sent against this refinery in just 5 years, and 29 violations were given to them from 2016 to 2018. In this area, the population is 80% people of color and 25% families of low income. There have also been an increased rates of cancer in this area, and children asthma rates is 27%, which is double that of the countrywide asthma rates. Due to all of these health issues and the physical issues that occurred from the previous slide that I mentioned, a lot of these people in the area have been protesting and trying to cut ties with this refinery. However, this refinery has tried to get the people back on its side. They donate to charities and nonprofits from the area, and also donate to development projects, etc. They're just trying to get the community to try and view them as not hazardous. Also, this refinery is the city's top employer, so if the refinery was to shut down, a lot of people would lose their jobs. And the refinery does bring in more than 10% of the city's income, so that's why it's been all of these health issues have been put up with for so long.
Before we dive into our proposal, I just kind of wanted to give some background on Richmond and the refinery and why this is an injustice and why we should be talking about this, why this matters. So to begin, Richmond is home to over 100,000 people, and of those 100,000 people, 1,700 people live within 3 miles of the Chevron refinery. And Richmond is not that big of a city. It's only 35,840 acres, which is about 56 square miles. And of that, 39.8% of it is water. So to put this into some more perspective, the Chevron refinery takes up 3,000 acres, which is 8% of the entire city. That's a lot of space for one facility. So as Kara mentioned before, if this refinery were to go away, it would put a lot of people out of a job, but it takes up a lot of space. Also, since 2006, this refinery has been in high priority violation of the Environmental Protection Agency. As mentioned in the slide previously, this facility is huge. So in 2007, the EPA reported that over 900,000 pounds of toxic waste was emitted from Chevron. In the summer of 2009, Communities for a Better Environment, or CBE, conducted a survey with 440 adults and 282 children, all of whom were residents of Richmond, and this study tragically found that 46% of these adults and 17% of children surveyed suffered from asthma. As you can see in this pie chart here, the blue is the adults with asthma, the light blue on there, and then the lime green is the children with asthma. And what we found is that the correlation of this toxic refinery and the asthma is not a correlation. It's a much higher concentration of people with asthma than compared to the rest of the United States. And this also shows that the longer someone resides in Richmond, the greater the chance of suffering from asthma.
For our project, we went with the oil spill of the Chevron Richmond refinery that happened this past February. And we went with it because it has a history of violations and is located in an area where a high percentage of its population are people of color. This is an unfortunate example of environmental injustice. The toxins released from the refinery has been an issue of health concern for years, and this recent February oil spill has caused environmental degradation. We want to research how this company can change to be more beneficial to the community.
Considering the recent oil spill and just some more of the information that we've gathered about this refinery, we want to look at the existing statistical and historical data, and we want to take that to survey the people of Richmond, California, just to see what the most beneficial course of action in terms of changing the refinery for the community. We want the community to be healthy and to feel like they have a say in what's going on. So here are a couple questions we need to consider when moving forward with our research. First being, why is the Chevron refinery still such a prominent part of the economy in Richmond, considering the numerous EPA violations? And we really just want to talk to the residents of Richmond and get their perspective on that, see if they feel like they do need that refinery there, and just explore that a little bit. Another one would be, how can all of the health issues and oil spills caused by the refinery be justified? Do people feel that it's okay because it does provide such a high source of money for the economy, or not? And at what point do the people of Richmond need to change? Are the health risks going to be the only thing? Is it going to take more oil spills, more health code violations, etc.? And how would the absence or even just the changing of policy of the refinery affect the people? And there can be a lot of pros and cons to this, and this is going to lead us to our research questions a little bit later. So the goal here is, first of all, to talk about the fact that this is an inequality that the people of Richmond, California are experiencing. The EPA asserts that the environmental equality starts when the same degree of protection from environmental and health hazards exists, and there's equal access to the decision-making process to have a healthy environment in which to live, learn, and work. And our goal here is to make sure that the people of Richmond do have a say in that. They do have access to decision-making. So bottom line, Richmond needs a healthier and safer environment for the community, but we need this to be able to happen without collapsing the economy, because asthma, different diseases from all this toxic waste, that's a big deal. So the issue here is try to solve this severe inequality, because if people are getting sick or become immune compromised because of the way this company operates, this needs to be addressed so the community can thrive more. So our goal in this is to determine who is the most affected by this inequality and just talk about it with them, see what their perspective is, and then try to move forward based on the hope that equality will happen.
With our limitations in this project, which I'll address in the next slide, our research questions can only lead us so far. So we wanted to know what the local people's view were on the refinery, and from local articles and news broadcasts, there was general consensus that the citizens were disgusted with the strong smell and the decline of water quality and the visual. But most of all, they were really upset that no one was taking responsibility for the oil spill, and many of them were scared, thinking that stuff like this could happen and nothing would happen to stop this. For our second question, we just asked what should be done with the refinery. So this would be according to other examples and what the general local consensus is. And there's a lot of talk and people wanting to push for green energy and depend less on fossil fuels because of the large amounts of pollution. For our third question, we asked if Chevron brings more financial gain and opportunity than it does cost for its negative impacts. And so looking on the labor statistics for oil refineries in the U.S., workers make around $73,000 annually, so around $35 an hour, which is very good. And there are not much of counts of how much this oil spill cleanup will cost. But as of 2015, Chevron promised to provide $90 million to the community over the next 10 years. So there's definitely a lot of money coming in, but not quite official like financial statements of how much they cost.
So this brings us to our proposal about the research that we want to conduct on Richmond, California, and we want to start by using the information from all the secondary data sets that we had talked about in previous slides, considering the different statistics about health risks and the oil spills, all of that. And we want to move forward with conducting our own research to focus on the community of Richmond, California, the people. So this endeavor will require mixed method research. We want to continue with two basic steps. First, we want to conduct a survey, and then after that, a potential follow-up interview based on those surveys. So the first step, the survey will gather all the qualitative data that we require. Then the survey will be distributed to residents of Richmond, California who are willing. We want to consider the answers of the surveys to determine who is the most affected by this refinery. And then the second step will be to do an interview to gather the qualitative data that we require. So why do we want our survey to be focused on the quantitative data? The goal of the survey is to focus on who is the most affected by this refinery, considering the community of Richmond, and we need demographics to be able to talk about that. We need to analyze statistics. We need to understand the proximity and who lives closest, who has the most health risks. We need the numbers. So a couple of those questions that we're going to ask are going to turn into percentages to be able to kind of explore that a little bit. So some of the questions that will be on this survey include: what is your race and ethnicity, and what is your socioeconomic status? And our guess is that people who are in the minority category or have a low socioeconomic status are going to be the ones that are affected the most. And then another question is, in miles, how close do you live to the Chevron Richmond Refinery? And we're going to kind of compare some of those previous questions to question to see if there's an inequality there, if there's more people of low class and minority that are in the category that lives closer to Chevron Richmond Refinery. Another question is, how long have you lived in Richmond? And that's really going to be important when talking about the health risks that people endure. The longer they live there, the higher the risk of health problems. Do you or a family member work or previously worked for Chevron? Do you or a family member have asthma? Do you or a family member suffer from another kind of toxin-related illness? Have you or a family member been directly affected by Chevron in any way? Are you aware of the Chevron oil spill that occurred earlier in February this year? Has Chevron communicated with you and your family when they have been cited with an EPA violation? Have you directly been given money as compensation by Chevron? Do you feel that Chevron needs to change their processes to become more environmentally friendly? Do you think government action should be taken? We also want to make sure that we have qualitative data as a part of our research, because the quantitative data will only tell us the numbers, but it won't tell us the stories of the people who are experiencing this. So we want to conduct some interviews. So we want to use the information from the surveys with the quantitative data, and then we want to interview people who live closest to the refinery, those who might work there or used to work at the refinery, and those who experience health risks because of the refinery. And we want to inquire their perspectives on steps to take to reduce inequality, because they're the ones experiencing the inequality. So some of these interview questions might include: how has the Chevron refinery affected you the most? And we're going to leave these questions pretty open-ended, because we really want to get as much of an unbiased perspective as we can from all these people, just to hear what their true thoughts are. How do you think this refinery affects your community? What are your thoughts on the 29 EPA violations that Chevron has been cited in the past several years? Do you see a health problem in your community due to the extreme amount of toxic waste? How does Chevron need to help these problems and fix the environmental and health problems? Are you afraid that the removal of Chevron would affect your community? What else do you have to add?
Our first limitation to the study is the limitation of our bias, and this is because we are only ourselves and we can only get our initial thoughts. We cannot understand the impact that this has on a variety of people, from different incomes to their location and distance relevant to the site, to their importance of the site, if they use the beach a lot, and their cultural significance that comes from a variety of stuff, be it religious or racial. Our second limitation is also the limitation of time, as we can only see it as a current event and not the whole picture that comes with the luxury of time. So there's no way of us currently telling the impacts that this oil spill will have. And for our last limitation is the shortcomings of our survey mean that we can't get the exact demographic of the people replying. Besides the general demographics from government websites, it's hard to determine who was impacted and how. We can address these gaps by having multiple parties research. So this is multiple entities and organizations researching from different groups and focus groups. And we could also speak upon the oil spill after some time. So this will be this will allow us to have time to see the financial restraint, the cultural restraints, and the impact that this has, aside from just the physical impacts of the smell and the view.